Hello everyone, and welcome to Dark Natter. Hello listeners, and welcome once again to Dark Natter, the podcast where we carve apart your favourite glistening chunks of dark fiction. I'm John Richter, horror writer.
And I'm Liam Martin, horror fan.
Is that what we're going with?
I don't know. I mean, I'm more than just a horror fan. I've done loads of stuff in my life.
In the past we've used the term enthusiast or aficionado.
I think the first episode, serial killer.
Serial killer, yeah, creep.
Yeah.
Weirdo.
Weirdo, yeah. That's a new one, but yeah, we can use that.
Not that that's exclusive. See, we're both a bit weird. Well, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this, would we?
No, we wouldn't. In our pants.
In our pants again.
Very hot.
No, well, yeah, sorry, yeah, that's why, because of the temperature, not the love of human flesh. Well, why don't we get cracking? Dive straight into the blood and gore. Or maybe the absence of blood and gore. Depends what we're going to talk about. But before we explain, before we explain the what, let's explain the why. So the concept of our podcast is each of us takes in turn to pitch to other a dark fiction concept, a piece of work that they wish to audition or to offer up as a sacrificial lamb for entry into the Hall of the Hall of Pain.
Shall I do another laugh now?
Let's try it again. Hang on, I'll do Hall of Pain, you do the laugh. We're getting there with it. I think maybe another 50
we
episodes.
We haven't got the formula down, have we? But yeah, go on.
It's getting better with every passing week. Okay, the Hall of Pain.
I just had a flash though that it's basically my laugh is like Krusty the Clown, and I just can't get that out of my head now. So one more time, try again.
Okay, so don't think, whatever you do, don't think about Krusty the Clown. Don't think about all the best bits of The Simpsons and his face and his...
Definitely not thinking about that.
Don't go instead of laughing.
That was very good.
Thank you. Okay, the stakes for today's episode are entry into the illustrious halls, blood-drenched corridors of the Hall of Pain. Excellent. Wow. Maybe Krusty the Clown could be in it. He's pretty dark, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like an alcoholic,
gambler and
chain smoker, probably a drug addict, although I don't think that was ever depicted. So, did we finish explaining what the Hall of Pain is?
No, we just sort of what Krusty the
Clown. It's for brilliant examples of dark fiction, whether it's a specific movie, a book, as I should say, because I'm from Wigan, rather than a book. It might be a franchise that encompasses books, movies, video games. Who knows? It depends on whatever we want to pitch. As at the time of recording, there are 2 residents in the Hall of Pain.
I'm not doing a laugh again.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to bring that off. Hall of Pain. Yeah. Hall of Pain.
Oh, I tell you what, you should still
stick with the voice.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get someone on board for that.
Hire somebody. Actually, if anyone out there,
if anyone wants to come on and do the guest weird, creepy voice for the Hall of Pain, we would love to have you, if only to save my vocal cords. So the Hall of Pain currently contains Stephen King, complete works thereof, and Silent Hill, the video game horror extravaganza.
2 worthy entrants.
No one has failed to admission
yet. But today, I don't know. I think this is going to be a harder sell.
Divisive. Is that the word? Or just rubbish?
There are definitely parts of it that are rubbish. We will get to that in due course.
Can you wait?
But this week it's my turn to pitch to you.
Indeed.
Shall we reveal what it is that I am pitching?
Please Fire away.
So we're going to talk today about the Blair Witch Project and its subsequent sequels. Not the video game that was bizarrely announced at E3 this year.
Weird.
Very strange. I wasn't expecting that at all. But no, just the Blair Witch, the 2000 sequel, which we'll get to, and then the recent proper sequel.
Reboot.
Well,
But
kind of
you're
a
right,
rebooted
it's a
sequel and
you're right,
a
it's a
direct.
sequel.
But I think they actually discount the events of Book of Shadows in that. But again, we'll get to all this later. But we're talking about those three films. I'm a big fan, especially of the original.
Me too.
Yes.
I'll be upfront about that. I think the original is ace.
Yeah, I mean, it came out in... Oh, God. It was the late 90s, and I'm going to say 98. It was 99, I think. 99 it came out. And it's basically a found footage horror film, and there weren't many of these at the time. But it's a found footage horror film. 3 documentary filmmakers go into the woods to kind of discover the legend of the Blair Witch.
And this, if I remember rightly, slightly confusingly, the town is called, or the place is called Burkittsville.
Yes.
It's not called Blair. It was formerly called Blair back in the,
Olden times.
whatever olden times there were. My historical knowledge of America is very poor. Whenever it was that witchcraft was at its peak, whenever it was, that was really in at the time. It was called Blair County.
Yes.
And it's formerly,
hence the Blair Witch.
but subsequently rebranded to
Burkittsville, Maryland. So yeah, they go there, they interview the residents about the legend of the Blair Witch. Then they actually go into the woods where the lady who was the Blair Witch was kind of banished, and weird shit starts happening.
Yeah, that's right. And we get a weird, like, patchwork kind of tapestry of different myths and bits of legends, as I remember rightly. There's a townsfolk. What's the singular of a townsperson? Who's like some nice old lady who's like, oh yeah, I seem to remember hearing something about the Blair Witch. And then there's 2 blokes who were talking about the men that were found on Coffin Rock.
Yeah, Coffin Rock.
Slightly stupid name, but I'll have it. And it was like 5 dead bodies lashed together, arranged in a pentagram. Cool.
Very cool.
There's some other bloke who's talking about a guy, like a hermit who used to live in a cabin in the woods, and he was killing local kids.
Yeah.
Doesn't really seem to be to do with the witch, but
on the Blair Witch's bidding.
Loosely, and he's sort of sketchy on the details, but somebody might even be a different person, talks about how he used to make he'd take them down into his basement in pairs and make one of them face the corner because he couldn't stand their eyes on him while he was killing their friend, and then he'd take one out of the corner, kill them as well.
Which is a very important point. Now, obviously, spoilers, there could be... I mean, how far are we going to go with the spoilers in this?
I would like to discuss the Ace ending.
Because the ending is great.
So I want to go... I think it's... Mega spoilers, please.
So, mega spoiler alert. That point about making the other kid stand in the corner facing the wall kind of comes into it at the end, which is just a brilliant touch.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And I just this is a slightly odd thing to try and generalise, I love it when a story has what feels like a little minor sort of side plot point of irrelevant detail that you completely forget about. Yeah. And then it crops up again at the ending and it's a really big deal. I'm trying to think of any really good examples of that, and I of course can't. But,
that's difficult. We should have...
Even so here's one. Spoiler alert for Stephen King's The Stand, which we talked about a few episodes ago. The character of the trash can man is introduced sort of about 2/3 of the way into the book. Not that big a deal, sort of relatively medium level henchman, but he becomes really, really pivotal to the ending.
Yes.
This is not quite the same as that, but it's that idea of something that didn't feel as monumental when it was introduced as it becomes later.
Well, yeah, because he's a pyromaniac, and we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. You don't think it's going to be a big plot point, but it actually is the ultimate undoing.
So
of
as the
these
viewer,
characters.
you're I forgot. I remember that. Brilliant.
I think it's one of those really satisfying things where if you're paying attention, you can. You know, when I don't know about you, you get quite smug when you're watching a film with somebody and not sure if they're paying attention. Do you ever get that thing where you really want to point out to them, like, oh, remember what they said earlier on?
I do it all the time. I get that feedback that I'm a nightmare to watch anything with, because all I ever do is go, you need to watch this bit. This bit's really good.
And I think like I'm being really clever that I was the only one paying attention, and they're like, yeah, I know. They just don't care as much as I do.
You're like, well, if you knew, why didn't you have a massive exciting grin on your face like I did?
Why are you standing up, leaping, cheering and clapping and hollering? And
it's almost like they don't care.
They don't care, do they?
It's like it's not important and it's just a film.
But yeah, I know what you mean. So
forget them.
So at the end, yeah, we do see
Rustin Parr is the name of the hermit in the woods, and we do indeed see his MO making a big appearance, don't we?
We see,
But maybe we should wind back a little bit, and we'll build up to that point. Not that we're going to go through the whole plot line by line, but maybe to do it slightly more chronologically. The three central characters, who are Heather, Mikey, as he's called in the film, and Josh, and I think I'm right in saying that that was their real names.
Yes, that was their real names, which is kind of an interesting. I guess what it lends itself to the whole authenticity thing of people actually believing it was a real documentary, using their real names and. Yeah, and they actually use that technique again with the sequel, Book of Shadows, not the later sequel, which we'll get to. But yeah, I just think it's quite a nice touch using their real names. It adds that kind of level of authenticity, and
definitely at the time it came out, I remember I was a teenager. We were both teenagers, late 90s. There was some confusion about how unreal it was, how fictitious it was.
Yeah.
So although I think by the time I saw it, it was generally understood that. In the cinema, which was dead scary.
Yeah, did you go to cinema as well?
Yeah,
I did.
And just for the record, we all got a taxi home, and because we were all skint and had about £2 each to our name after spending it all on, popcorn and like dead expensive pick and mix in the cinema, we had to go to the sort of the one drop-off point that everyone could walk home from, like the sort of central one. And my walk home from that central point in the dark was through the woods.
Oh my god!
I just legged it. I just ran. I was absolutely dead frightened.
Similar thing happened to me actually. I got dropped off. I went back to a friend's house, and we stayed there for a few hours. I don't know, probably listened to Placebo or something like that. And then I had to walk back home like really quite late at night and past like farms. It wasn't quite through the woods, but I was kind of shitting it as well. Actually.
Bricking it.
So yeah, quite similar experiences there.
And I was sat next to a girl who had the motion sickness thing and had to go off and be sick.
Well, I think we do need to talk about that. I think in the kind of found footage.
Well, let's do it. Let's cover it.
Yeah,
so this movie was it wasn't the first ever, but it was perhaps
the film that popularised it.
Popularised found footage as a horror subgenre.
I don't think there can be any question about that.
100%.
So essentially what that means is they're filming it like a documentary on their camcorders, so you get this kind of shaky cam, first person view the whole time. I think it really, it just makes it like, again, that authenticity, and it just makes it feel more real. You're not getting these Hollywood special effects and slick cuts and everything like that. You're getting shaky camcorder looking around. You're kind of seeing what they're seeing, and it's just a little bit more immersive, or at least it was at the time.
Yeah, when it's been done to death.
Yeah, it has been done to death.
I've seen some really
shit
crayons.
I've seen some really good ones since
me
as well.
Too.
Though. I still don't. It gets a lot of criticism now, the found footage subgenre, I guess you'd call it. But I think it's okay. I quite like it. I really like the Blair Witch, and I've liked a lot of the films that have come from it. I do understand though why people are critical. It's perhaps overused now. If you're making a horror film on a budget,
it's a way around your budgetary constraints, which I understand and I can relate to. And I'd rather they did that than didn't do it and just made a really terrible film. But it almost seems it's just really trite. It's very cliched. You need to be coming up with something really, really original, because that doing a found footage movie is not original in the slightest, thanks to the Blair Witch.
I think you need to have a good idea, definitely, to pull it off. There is actually, this is an interesting tie into the Blair Witch as well. There's a couple of films, VHS and VHS2, and they're found footage horror anthologies. So lots of like found footage films within a film, and it's actually directed by the guy who did the recent Blair Witch, and it's good. It's good. We'll talk about the recent Blair Witch later.
That's interesting.
But VHS, some of the stories are better than others, but it is very good. And again, it does the found footage thing very well. So yeah,
interesting. And of course, in terms of direction, the first movie, The Blair Witch Project, we ought to mention, was written, directed and edited, because the editing was a big part of its success, by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. And they nailed it, didn't they, with that? It wasn't just the found footage thing, it was the whole viral marketing.
Yes.
This is real footage that was found in the woods, and these are not actors, these are 3 real teenagers, or however old they're supposed to be, who have disappeared. And it was that, I think, added to its mystique. And I think a lot of people genuinely in the cinema thought they were watching real shit.
Well, yeah, so you kind of alluded to that earlier. By the time you went to see it, you knew then it was just a film, pure fiction, dark fiction, if you will. Is that correct?
Yes. And so one issue I had with the movie is that it didn't, other than the ending, which we'll still hold off and fusing about for circa 5 more minutes. You don't see or hear anything really. There are sections in the movie where the 3 hapless campers are complaining about hearing noises outside the tent, and you pretty much can't hear them.
No.
And they run from the tent at one point, and they're screaming, "Oh, what the fuck is there? Oh my god, what is that?" And you can't see it. And I'm still sort of in 2 minds. It's a great example of slow build restraint, which I am 100% supportive of in horror movies. Build up the dread. Don't just immediately give me a load of blood gushing zombie monsters after 10 minutes. And perhaps one of the major criticisms of the most recent movie was it just after a relatively restrained start, it just went completely over the top.
Hollywood,
just shock after shock after. If somebody shouting "boo, boo, boo, boo" isn't scary. You know what I mean? However, I feel like the Blair Witch Project almost goes too far the other way, in that it was a bit frustrating. I wanted to just hear these noises that they were hearing, and I wanted to see a glimpse of the thing that was making her scream, but I couldn't see or hear either of them.
See, the thing with the sound is that. So when I was in the cinema watching it, I was the same. When they were like, "Oh, what the fuck is that?" running through the woods, I'm kind of there listening, and I thought, "Oh, I didn't hear anything," and it made me want to watch the film again. Now, maybe on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, watch through, when you still can't hear anything, it's a little bit frustrating. But I think actually the fact that they can hear it, and maybe I just didn't quite hear the one little snippet of horrible fucking witch sound that you were supposed to hear, I kind of think that made it more interesting. I didn't mind that at all.
I do know what you mean, and I guess if you challenge me on what I'm saying there, is like, what do I want? Did I want to hear like a in the back? Just would that have made the film better? Probably not. So this is why I don't make successful viral horror movies yet.
I mean, it was funny though, in terms of like what you thought was real and wasn't. I remember thinking, I just assumed, I think, that the legend of the Blair Witch was a real thing, but this was just a
fictionalised movie made about a real legend.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
And maybe I did. Maybe you're right. It was very clever the way it. You didn't feel like you were going in to watch a normal movie. It was just a fictional horror movie with actors. You felt like you were watching some strange other thing.
Yeah, I do remember though at the end of you were saying that somebody got motion sick. I remember a friend of mine I went to see it with saw somebody else they knew. I can't remember his name now. It was quite a funny name, and the other guy was like, "Oh, that was shit, wasn't it?" And we all had to kind of. I think my friend agreed with him, but this other guy was weird. We were kind of looking at each other. Like, we thought it was pretty good, actually. But he was so confident in the fact that it was shit that we just didn't challenge him on it.
I had that when I went, just as a quick digression, went to watch Blade Runner 2049 when that came out, which I love. Thought was I love the original. I thought the sequel was great. So you sat there for the 3 hours enthralled by this. I was with my friend, her boyfriend, and his mate, and. So you get to the end and you, I can't wait to just, these guys, I bet they were blown away by how brilliant that movie was. And then after like 10 seconds after the credits started rolling, her boyfriend's mate was just like, well, that was a bag of wank. Like, oh, great.
It's really...
It's deflating, isn't it?
It shouldn't be, but it really is quite deflating, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know why. But.
So yeah, this film did have that impact. It was a divisive movie. Lots of people thought it was overhyped, drivel, boring, nothing happened, was a common...
And that ties into your point about, you don't really see anything or even hear anything. But I just think the characters, the way they all kind of go crazy, it's just so believable. Yeah. Very well acted.
But I think so. I've even heard people say that they thought the acting performances weren't great, and I think that's bullshit, because I think they did a great job. I thought it's basically a psychological horror about 3 young people who go into the woods to make a documentary about a local legend of a witch and get lost in the woods and can't find their way out again. That's it. That's the movie.
Yeah.
And they start to blame each other for getting lost, and Heather, the sort of leader of the group, it's her project, and she's brought a friend, and I'm not even sure they know Mike. I think they kind of roped him in online or whatever. They found a cameraman that they can get to help them. So
Heather and Josh, I think, were friends, but Mike wasn't, and Mike is the one, I believe, that gets rid of the map.
I kicked that fucker into the creek yesterday. It was useless.
Because what happens is they start kind of just going round in circles, and like you said, they start blaming each other. So yeah, you could just leave it at that, and they're just lost in the woods. But there is obviously other things that happen there.
But even that I know there's loads of fan theories, and that's one of the many great things.
Well, I've got a good one as well, which I'm
can't wait. There's the actual manifestations that we do see as the viewer are, and forgive me, these will be in the wrong order. They find creepy wooden totems hanging in the woods, like strange little kind of wooden voodoo doll, cornball shit, wicker man
tied together with string and twigs. That's my theory later, but anyway.
And then at one point they find like these little, I'm going to go with the word cairns, I think, little stack of stones. Is that a cairn? I don't know what.
I don't know.
I'm going with it. It's a cairn. It feels like it's Scottish. A cairn. Yeah. Look, there's a wee cairn here on the floor of the forest.
He's basically just
offended entire country. We can edit that bit out though, can't we? So, and one of them...
we'll edit that bit out, so we will.
You've just offended Jamaica.
That was Scotland.
Was it? Oh, okay. One of them knocks over a pile of stones, which he probably shouldn't have done. And then later on, they wake up in the morning after yet another night spent in the woods because they can't find the fucking exit. Exit door. And the cairns are outside, one outside of each tent.
Yeah.
Who's put them there? But of course, you could interpret that to it's one of them that's done it because they're going nuts.
Or just a local messing with them. You know, it doesn't have to be, at this stage, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything supernatural. And even the whole film, really, you could argue, it doesn't have to be. Is there anything actually supernatural that happens in it?
I believe there isn't, and even the ending arguably
it could just
isn't.
be someone like you can stand in the corner.
That's true.
Yeah.
So there's so we've talked about them getting lost in the woods.
Yeah.
We've talked about them going around in circles. We've talked about one of them stupidly throwing the map away because he believes it's not serving any purpose, which is a pretty daft thing to do. Talked about the manifestation, the little piles of stones and creepy twig sculptures. The next thing that happens is one of them goes missing.
Yes, and they receive a little package.
A little gift from the forest.
A little gift from the forest.
So after Josh disappears, or storms off, we don't know.
Yeah, or
just buggers off in the night because he's had enough of them.
Because he is losing his cool by this stage.
He's really ranting and raving at Heather at one point, really nasty.
Yeah.
Like I remember, he's got the camera on her, and he's like, "You're lost in the woods. There's no way out. Right. You don't know how to get home. You're running out of food. What's your motivation for the scene?"
Now we should point out, actually, that is quite a clever thing that they kind of justify. Because I guess by this point, if you're watching it, you're thinking, "Why the, frig, are you still filming the whole bloody thing when you're clearly lost? Like, things aren't going well. This isn't anything to do with Blair Witch. You just want to get home. Why are you still filming it all?" Because you probably... Do you think you would? Would you put down the camera at this stage?
One thing I would say is that pretty much every found footage film has had to try to justify why its protagonists continue to film the events once they... So at the start, they're filming for some valid reason, like they're making a documentary or whatever. Then it'll deteriorate into, we've got to keep filming because we want to capture these horrible events. But by the time you're facing death, you wouldn't be arsed about your documentary anymore. So I think we'd all, you'd bin the camera off by then. But in the Blair Witch Project, Heather, it gives it the old, "It's all I've got left, damn it!" And that's I
thought it was quite a good way of justifying it. Yeah,
and it was true to her character. It felt believable. The problem is every other fan footage movie ever has had to do the same thing.
It becomes very contrived, doesn't it? After a while, it's all I've got left.
It's just like the Blair Witch Project.
Some of them have used clever techniques, like the camera's got a light on it, so they're holding it up so they can actually see, it's got like night vision or something, so they can actually see with it.
Hey, I'll tell you what, just as a quick aside then, as the best other found footage movie... I
think I know what you're going to say.
...that includes night vision is Wreck.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
It's ace,
I totally agree with you.
So, no spoilers for Wreck. Just anyone who's listening to this, if you haven't seen Wreck before, definitely go and watch it. Now, stop listening to this rubbish. Go and watch that immediately.
And no doubt we will do an episode on it. I wonder if it's going to get into the Hall of Fame.
But having said that, it's got some big issues.
Lots of issues.
Who knows?
Actually, the third film is pretty crap.
I thought the second one was shit as well.
I didn't mind the
first one's good though.
Anyway, it's neither here nor there. That's for another week.
So Josh, having disappeared, reappears in reduced form in the centre of a bundle of twigs, and there's another ambiguous... You're not quite clear what it is.
What it is, no, totally.
So Heather, who by this point is, fraying at the seams psychologically, she's unwrapping this parcel. She doesn't want to tell Mikey what it is. She does it to herself quietly, and she's kind of, oh my god, and you feel quite sorry for her, to be honest. And then she opens this thing up, and there's what looks like a tongue in there, like a lump of flesh and loads of blood. And then she kind of throws it away, and there's no, you don't really know what it was. Yeah. But horrible. And suggests Josh
again. It's sort of forcing you to use your imagination a little bit, and I think, again, I think that's what the film does so well. It kind of just makes, it's not in a lazy way, but it just makes you do the work. The work.
Definitely.
You've really got to use your imagination. You've got to kind of squint to see everything. You've got to really listen out for everything, and by doing so you're super invested in what's happening. So
brilliant. And then
which is why I think it deserves a place in the Hall of Fame, but we'll get to that later.
I'll reserve judgment. It's going well so far for the Blair Witch Project, but we're soon to blunder into the murky realms of its two sequels, so that could, we'll see. So to finish off the plot of the Blair Witch Project, Josh, maybe the next night, another day and night, trapped in these endless woods, and then they hear Josh screaming and calling to them in the middle of the night. So they blunder off into the woods to try and find their friend. Josh, are you out there, Josh? And they can hear him screaming. They stumble upon a cabin, a sort of knackered, old, dilapidated shack, and they go inside. And at this point, they separate. So you get a splicing together of Mikey's footage intercut with Heather's footage, and then I can't remember.
I think actually, just before we should point out there's that really famous shot of Heather
of course.
with the camera. This is just before the final
which
kind
was
of
parodied in all manner of snot-based comedy.
Yeah. But it is very iconic.
You're right, I apologise. And she says something like, she apologises. She's dripping with, mucus because she's crying and cold and alone. And she says that she's, they're being hunted.
Yeah,
and
I think that's a really just great bit in the Blair Witch.
And Heather Donahue does a great job in that film.
Really
I don't care what anybody says. I think she's ace, and I think it's sad that she sort of, well, as far as I understand, she retired from acting, did a bit more, and then kind of binned it off, and went on to be a medicinal cannabis grower, and has like an autobiography about her successes in that field. So good on you, Heather, if you're listening, which of course she is. And can we have some? Please let us know how we go about procuring some of your lovely products. So they end up in the shack.
Yes.
Which at this point you might think, oh, Rustin Parr, that hermit who lived in a shack in the woods, but maybe that it doesn't trigger it at this point.
No.
But then, as they run around the interior of this knackered, gutted house, you see the child's handprints on the wall. And again, you might go, oh, wasn't there that guy who lived in a shack who was killing little kids? Mikey ends up in the basement, and I think we see his camera kind of get cut off as if he's been struck a blow.
That's right, yeah.
Cut to Heather. Josh, Mikey! There's no response now. She can't hear it. There's just her alone, screaming, crying. And she hurries down into the basement.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen? And here's the big ending that we've been...
Me too!
Goosebumps! That's a bit weird.
That is
so good.
Sign of a good film.
And Mikey is standing in the corner, facing into the corner of the room. And then just as she screams out, like, what the fuck? She then is clobbered and the camera drops to the ground. And that's your lot.
Which is kind of actually now become the classic ending to all found footage films, hasn't it? The camera dropping on the floor and just capturing some,
hand being dragged away or whatever it is. You're right, actually. I never thought about that. That in itself is the Blair Witch maybe inspired it. Yeah, good point. Ace film. To be honest, now this is a weird... If it was just that one film, no sequels, it would be in the Hall of Pain, that's pain, like a shot, like a rat up a horrible drain pipe. But sadly,
rusty drain pipe from Silent Hill,
like Rustin Parr's drain pipe, like Rustin Parr up a shed.
Oh, actually, before we get on to this, can I give my theory about who I think it is?
Defo.
I didn't know as well. I didn't realise that this was an actual theory that's on Tinternet, as you would say up north. But
we don't have it up north. It's not. We don't have the internet.
Early in the film, they interviewed this sort of really creepy looking. It kind of looks like she's a meth addict, actually. A woman called Mary Brown. And I think, and turns out, other people think this as well. I think she's involved somehow.
Is she the one who goes like, and she had hair all over her body.
Yeah.
It's really thick, dark hair. I feel like she's a bit like that.
Very much so. And I feel like, well, the kind of legend with the Blair Witch is that if you kind of see her, you're kind of touched by her and you'll sort of do her bidding almost. So she claims to have seen her. And when they go to her house, there's a real close-up shot of her gate, which is kind of a twig-based gate tied together with string, which is very similar to the kind of weird shape things, symbolic totems that they find in the woods.
Okay,
the way it's kind of strung together. Also, and I didn't notice this, somebody else has. She says about the Blair Witch having like hair on her body, and she's like all of her body is really covered up, like she's wearing these long sleeves. Some have even speculated that you can kind of see hair
poking out.
Yeah. So I'm having it that she was involved.
Love that. That's great.
Maybe I'm not having it but I just think it's great that it's ambiguous enough that you can come up with these fan theories.
Totally. There's a completely non-paranormal reading that involves one or more people being murderers, basically. delusional, which could be one of the three. It could be Mary Brown, as
Mary
you
Brown.
said. But then there's a completely paranormal reading of it, where there is a Blair Witch that is, that they've fallen foul of.
So look out for that. You can find that on YouTube. If you just type in Blair Witch Mary Brown or Blair Witch old woman interview, it'll come up. And have a look for a gate tied together, twigs and a bit of string, and her long sleeves, and just quite a creepy looking woman anyway.
She is dead creepy.
So that's one theory, and I think that's what makes Blair Witch great, that you can come up with these theories.
Moving us along from the Blair Witch Project to its sequel, Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, which it must be stated early on that there isn't a book, and certainly not a Book of Shadows, in Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, is there?
Yeah, that is a bit of an oversight there from the...
I'm going to go so far as to say, fuck knows why it's called Book of Shadows, because it isn't anything to do with the plot.
Well, it could have something to do with, apparently, this film, the director, there was a lot of studio interference when he was making it. So maybe the Book of Shadows played a bigger, in his original vision.
They decided to edit the book out but not change the title.
No, you're right. There's no defending it really.
But I agree. I've heard. Again, I'll jump straight to full disclosure. Blair Witch 2 is generally panned and much maligned.
Critics,
If you look up its Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic score, it's languishing in the 15% like utter dross garbage. I like it.
I'll tell you what, mate. I don't know anyone personally. Maybe this says says a lot about the people I hang around with. I don't know anybody personally who dislikes it.
That's interesting, because sometimes I think that things come out, get well reviewed, and everyone regards them as amazing.
Yeah.
Other things come out, get not very well reviewed, and then everyone piles in, and before you know it, the general
narrative
consensus is it's garbage. Yeah. When really the truth is it's okay.
It's okay. It's not a great film by any stretch of my imagination. It hasn't aged very well. It's very of its time, and because it's we should probably point out that this isn't a found footage horror film. This is much more of a Hollywood movie, and it acknowledges the Blair Witch in the film. There's like a kind of meta thing going on, isn't
there?
Where they acknowledge the Blair Witch, and now like fans of the film are coming to Burkittsville to do their own documentaries, and
it's pissing off all the townsfolk who are perhaps best summed up. So you've got this clash you've got all these modern,
modern at the time,
modern at the time youth types. So you've got like a generic goth and a generic Wiccan, like a sort of pagan witchy lass, and then a bloke with a t-shirt over the top of a long sleeve shirt, and shorts over the top of long pants. That's what young people do.
I forgot. I used to wear the old long sleeve top with a t-shirt over the top. I fucking miss it. I miss it.
And it had thingy in the soundtrack is good, and it opens with disposable tees. It's absolutely ace.
You've got Queens of the Stone Age in there. Brilliant. A lot of like kind of rocking sort of metal, anthems.
But so that the clash of that group.
It actually reminds me, like I said, it's very of its time. It is a lot like, in terms of presentation, a 90s slasher film. It came out in the year 2000, but I think you could bung that in with like The Faculty and all these. Yeah, it's kind of got that kind of rocking soundtrack, a bit of attitude.
Brilliant.
And maybe if you watched it today as a youngster, a ute, you would just think, it's shit, but I guess maybe nostalgia reasons I like it, and I still quite like it.
Yeah, me too. And so you've got that group of the youngsters of the time, and clashing with the sort of established Burkittsville populace that are encapsulated in this ridiculous hick sheriff.
Sheriff.
Like, I ain't no documentary filmmaker.
And that's the thing, the sheriff is so good. Wipe that shit off your face. The sheriff is so good, you could almost make a case of, even if you don't like the film and think it's rubbish, it's almost so bad it's good because of the sheriff.
Agreed.
So over the top.
And any idea that this was going to be some sort of realistic, hyper-realistic found footage movie is completely dispelled by him. He's ridiculous, isn't he? Get down here, boy, open this door!
But that's the thing, it gets panned because, you know, obviously the Blair Witch was such a unique, innovative film. It, you know, while it wasn't necessarily the first found footage film, it popularised the subgenre. This is a Hollywood film, and people panned it for that. It's like, well, it's missing the point of the Blair Witch. But I think it's better for it.
I think it should be commended for trying to do something different rather than just rehashing the same ideas.
And that whole kind of meta thing, clever. I think it's clever. And it's got some, I think, decent ideas in it.
And it also mines the same seam as the first one in having events that can be explained as paranormal and maybe at the behest of the Blair Witch herself, but equally it could just be a load of bonkers people in the woods killing each other
and taking drugs and
smoking and boozing and doing all manner of bad behaviour to get killed in a 90s horror movie.
So I'm having it that it's actually quite a good film. The script isn't great, you know, the characters are a bit it's a bit cheesy at times. The special effects haven't aged that well. There's some really, I think, quite creepy scenes in it. Like when she's driving back and you see these like kids in the road.
Well, maybe we should at this point quickly summarise the plot. We won't do it in as much detail as we did as the last one because it's not as good. But in simple terms, there's a small bunch of young people have visited Burkittsville because they liked the Blair Witch Project, the movie.
Which I feel like if I had more money and if I lived in America, I probably would have done that.
Exactly. I can see myself doing it. So there's one goth lass, there's one sort of pagan lass, there's a couple who are making a documentary themselves about the phenomenon and this idea of kind of mass hysteria and its impact on the populace. And then they have all signed up for a tour with some local sort of scallywag who's called Jeff.
Again, also points out, it also has that thing where the characters, their first names are their real names. The surnames have been changed, but the first names are their real names. I think there's a
Which
Jeff.
is a cool idea. Well, Jeff Donovan is the actor who plays Jeff, whatever his fake surname is, and I have seen him in other things. I want to say he was in Hitch with Will Smith, but I should probably fact check that. But I think he's great. I love him.
I've just looked up. He is in Hitch.
Yes, yes. Which in itself could probably make it into the Hall of Pain.
Terrifying.
So bad that it's terrifying movie. Jeffrey Donovan.
Oh, and just the sheriff is called Sheriff. He doesn't have sheriff. His real name isn't in the film. His real name is Lanny Flaherty, but he plays Sheriff Ronald Cravens.
What else is Lanny Flaherty in?
Lanny
Flaherty, sorry.
Oh, Christ. He's in Signs.
Is he?
Yeah. Natural Born Killers. This
guy's fucking amazing. Killers? Oh, just put that on the list. Hang on. I'm going to type that in now. Future episode, Natural Born Killers. Yes, please. This group, Jeff, the sort of scallywag tour guide, he takes them into the woods. He's trying to flog them all manner of, authentic Blair Witch totems and bits of rock and shit. And then they get to the old rusting part, the ruins of the house that was used to film the rusting part. Very clever, acknowledging the original film. And then he's giving it, oh, whoa, that tree wasn't there before. And they're all like, yeah, nice try, mate. Yeah, that's bollocks. And then they end up all staying out in the woods. They get boozed up. Some other
Queens of the Stone Age, nicotine,
Valium, Vicodin, marijuana, ecstasy, and alcohol. Although really, they're just drinking and smoking weed.
Yeah, well, you never know.
There's no
shooting up.
It doesn't matter. We don't know, and neither do they.
Well, no,
because they black out.
Yeah.
Now, before that happens, so another tour rocks up and tries to kind of hassle them away because they've got permits, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, your balls are going to shrivel up and drop off. I'm going to curse on you.
So clearly there's basically I guess the point is there's so many groups of teens and film lovers coming in to make these documentaries, which is pissing off the locals. But they run into a rival group.
And they manage to persuade the rival group to bugger off the Coffin Rock so they can stay in the ruins and get hammered. But then they wake up the next day and there's like what you might think of snow, but it's not. It's little scraps of paper.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that the couple that are doing the documentary project, it's all their work has been shredded and it's just floating around on the breeze, so they're freaking out. The tour guide dude, all his cameras have been trashed. And general mayhem has occurred, and no one can remember what has happened.
Yeah, they blacked out. Then they find some videotapes, their videotapes, and also it's probably worth pointing out at this point that the partner of the guy doing the project, are they doing it? Is it a co-project?
Yeah, I think it's like they're a couple.
Right.
Oh, and she's pregnant.
She's
pregnant, and she then has a miscarriage because of the stress of the situation and the irresponsible boozing the night before,
which forces them to go to the hospital.
Which then they somewhat implausibly, having gone to the hospital because she's had a miscarriage, which is very unfortunate, they then go back into the woods with Jeff to his abandoned, disused warehouse factory that he lives in.
I think they do go to the hospital, don't they?
They do,
treated, but then they don't go home.
But they don't go home. They go back into the woods
because they want to check the videotapes that they found.
Yeah, which is
as you would,
a bit bonkers.
Just having this,
and then the rest of the movie takes place pretty much exclusively in Jeff's gaff, where he lives, where he's got this dog barking dogs alarm, so he just got you in this,
which gets some creepy scares later on.
Opens it later, and there's some real dogs outside. And it starts to do that whole thing of weird. Is this really happening? Is it not happening?
But everyone, that sort of mass hysteria thing where everyone's experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
But then it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit when two of them look like they're going to hook up, and then they kind of both sat down.
Yeah.
But they both,
having just gorged each other on their flesh and sliced their own chests apart in the throes of weird carnal. Then they'd sort of what was that? That was a weird hallucination we just shared. Let's not talk about that for the rest of the film. Very strange.
There's a bit where hallucinations.
There's a bit where Kim, the goth lady, she's like blah blah blah. Hey Jeff, and Jeff turns around in his chair, and suddenly he's frying in an electric chair.
Which I think was really cool. Yeah, I like that bit.
And then the big we'll cut to the big ending. Is
we weren't going to go into much detail.
Sorry,
basically what
the big ending is that those that don't die in the course of the movie are found to have murdered the others.
Yeah.
And this is proven when the videotapes are viewed by Sheriff Cravens.
Ronald Cravens.
Videotapes prove everything. You murdered that woman. And
we got concrete evidence. I don't think he says that.
And I just remember the real horrified expression on, forgive me, I can't remember the character's name, the partner of the formerly pregnant woman who is now dead. And we all saw her basically hang herself in a real horrible scene where she's kind of lost her mind.
Stephen.
And then when he's confronted in the police station with the video evidence of what occurred, he, despite her protesting and begging not to, he wraps the noose around her neck and lobs her off a walkway and hangs her.
And then what does he say to the camera?
And then he turns to the camera and he goes, fucking witch. And then in the police station he can't believe, so he's like, "This is someone fuck with those tapes, this is bullshit."
And that's kind of just the end of the film.
And I don't know, I think
it's got good ideas. Was it? I don't think it was very well made necessarily. It's not aged very well, but I think it's a good film. It also had another, similar to the original film, which had this amazing viral campaign that obviously tricked people into thinking it was a real documentary. This one, actually, there was a companion documentary that aired on the Sci-Fi Channel about him investigating the crimes he committed. It obviously wasn't as powerful and as successful as the viral campaign for the original Blair Witch, but I just think it's quite an interesting that all three films, and we'll get to the third one later, had these kind of quite unique viral campaigns ahead of their time, I think, especially the first two.
Brilliant. Okay.
And you can watch that documentary about Jeff, essentially, and the murders he committed on YouTube. You can find it on that.
Jeff. And then he went on to, they finally let him out of prison.
They let him out, and
then he started messing around with Will Smith. Will Smith's missus. No, that wasn't the plot of Hitch. I doubt it. He was a baddie, though.
Was he?
You say it.
baddie.
But yes, managed to get that into every episode. Okay, this brings us, I think, to the final instalment in the official Blair Witch. Can we call it a trilogy? Trilogy?
Well, I think, I don't think they acknowledged the second film in the third one, so I guess not. But
that's a good point.
We'll call it a trilogy anyway. It's not called Blair Witch 3, though, is it?
It's almost like, it feels like a reboot.
It does feel like a reboot.
It's just called Blair Witch.
Albeit it does directly follow on from the original.
Because the plot is Heather Donahue, she apparently, she had a much younger brother at the time of her disappearance, who was only 4 years old. He has decided, now a grown man, because it's set in the present day of the current year, the year as we record is 2019. I think the movie came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, 2016, I think.
Or 2016. And her brother has decided he wants to go into the woods himself with his friends and a impressive array of gadgetry, movie making. He's got a drone camera, he's got walkie-talkies, he's got infrared, night vision type. So he's really kitted up to go and try and solve the mystery of what the hell happened to my sister. But it doesn't quite pan out, does it, in the way he might want?
No. It kind of starts off, actually, quite similar to the original. They go into the woods and then they kind of get lost, creepy things happen, and it's kind of like you said, it's a bit like a soft reboot of the original Blair Witch. So it's got that similar found footage style, but it's got a lot of sort of Hollywood special effects as well, and I think to its detriment. I don't think it's a terrible film.
I think for the first half an hour it shows a similar level of slow-paced restraint, slow build to the first movie, and I thought, oh hello, this is going to be better than I thought it was. And then once it decides to activate horror mode, it just completely throws what is meant to be scare after scare after scare at you for a solid hour, and it does just feel like somebody grabbing you by the neck and screaming into your face for an hour. It doesn't take long for it to become a bit boring and irritating, not helped by the fact that you don't really give a shit about any of the characters. So James, we're clear his motivation, he's there to look for his sister. He's a bit dull as a protagonist. He doesn't really, he's not likeable.
I think the concept is fine, by the way. I think younger sibling going to find, they find this footage online that kind of suggests that maybe Heather's still alive. That bit doesn't bother me. It's just the way they go about it.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with any of the acting performances as such. So you've got James is played by a fella called James, just to keep that trend of using the actors' real names, although it doesn't apply to the rest of the characters. He's there with a girl called Lisa, his friend Peter, Peter's partner Ashley, so that's the group of four, and they sort of pick up this other couple of locals who are the people who have found a videotape purportedly showing Heather in the shack, so new footage that has emerged and been found in the woods. And this couple are called Lane and Talia, and they're a bit sort of, what would you call them, new age kind of goth hippie. They love the forest and the legend, and they're all about the witch, and they want her memory to be kind of treasured. So when our four heroines arrive to interview them, they insist on being brought along. So you have a group of six that go into the woods, and it just deteriorates quickly into just, there's tents blasting up into the sky, there's things leering out of the trees, there's trees falling over and killing people, or squashing people and they don't quite die. It's very strange noises. So my comment earlier about, I wish I could have heard a little bit more. Well, in this, I can hear what sounds like a chainsaw and a truck, and
that's
just
and I guess that's
bonkers over the top.
People, as I say, people criticise Book of Shadows for, you missed the point of the Blair Witch, it's all Hollywood. This is why I think Book of Shadows was right to do that, because this one does all the Hollywood stuff, but still with that Blair Witch shaky cam, it just doesn't work for me. It feels very false and contrived. It's kind of hard to explain, but it feels like I'm watching a big Hollywood
production company doing the Blair Witch Project, and it just feels overproduced and overacted and over-scripted and over everything.
Which is a problem I have actually with a lot of horror films, especially nowadays. Oh God, I sound like old Sheriff Ronald. What's his name?
Craven.
Ronald Craven.
These horror films nowadays.
These damn horror films. But I do think that a lot of horror films now, they've got the formula down, but it's the overproduction. Sometimes I think it just ruins a lot of films. You know, when
glossy
too much CGI, glossy,
feels really glossy, and the colours are too bright. You know, we failed to mention the Blair Witch Project was in black and white. It was a black and white movie.
Yeah.
Was it a black and white movie?
No.
Were bits of it in black and white?
Yeah, probably the bits.
Shall we edit this bit out?
I think so. Yeah. No, it wasn't, because there's bits when they're in the forest.
Bollocks.
But I was thinking.
But it was in less colour.
Maybe the bits in the night, like night vision, it made it look black and white, and the bit at the end is definitely black and white.
Whereas this new one feels like it's filmed in glorious, beautiful Technicolor, 4K, amazing, and it's like it just doesn't work somehow. To be fair, there are a couple of sequences that I found quite scary.
Yeah.
So there was one bit where the sort of female lead, so James is. I don't think she's his girlfriend. I think she's just his friend. Can't remember. Watched it recently. Don't really remember much. That's testament to it's not been very good. Lisa, she is lobbed into like an oubliette under the Rustin Parr house, because that's inevitably where the action takes us. And she has to crawl out through a really, really claustrophobic, narrow,
great,
brilliant horror. Because I'm a bit claustrophobic, to be honest. So I barely could watch. It was really long and unpleasant.
Got that, have you seen The Descent? He's got that thing about it where it's awesome. Claustrophobia. Yeah, that bit.
Descent. Let's put that on the list as well. Get that on there. The Descent, great shout.
But yeah, that was the bit for me that is one of the only bits I can really remember about the film.
The only other bits I remember.
The other bit I remember is shit, but we're gone.
Are you thinking of the bit where Lane, the local lad, who by this point we've had a big falling out.
They've had a falling out,
and they've buggered off.
They've been banished.
They've been banished, and they're lost. And please help us. And our sort of four heroes are like, no, bugger off. Not particularly heroic. She finds Lane in the basement of Rustin Parr's house, and Lane is supposedly aged horribly, as if time itself has shifted in the Burkittsville woods. The big problem is, just get an old man, and then it would have been cool. Nope, just the same young lad with a fake beard on. It looks so shit.
I watched it in the cinema, and I would say probably 2/3 of the cinema just burst out laughing, including me. And I hate doing that in horror films. You get that sometimes, and I get it, it's that nervous kind of, you get a big shock and then everyone's kind of laughs, and then some people laugh a bit too much and it annoys me. But I get that whole but this bit, it was just funny.
It was laughable.
Laughable, yeah.
Very, very poor.
Laughable.
It was just rubbish. And then the only other bit I remember is the actual Blair Witch herself is depicted.
Yeah.
Now, although I actually find the creature depiction reasonably good, it's like a long-limbed...
Long-limbed. I think that's always portrayed. Again, wreck.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of... So I quite like the creature design, but we've had two movies that have very deliberately not shown us the Blair Witch, only merely shown us her impact on a group of people and their fragile psychological makeup. In this movie, we get full-blown, loads of shots of the Blair Witch, and this suddenly canonical, you can't look directly at her, but you can film her and look into a camera. Just, where's that come from?
Although I don't mind that. That actually kind of reminds me of like Medusa, the Gorgons, with the Perseus looking into the shield. If that's what they were going for, I don't mind that. But yeah, it was, I don't know, it was just a bit bollocks, really.
Yeah, not very good.
It was okay. I think as a horror film, it had bits that made you jump, and some of it was shot quite well, but it tried to be like the original, but all Hollywoodified.
Yeah, I get that.
and it didn't and that's why I think the original is so good, and why it shouldn't have had more in it, because it's your imagination. It leaves it to your imagination.
So here's a question. If you had been given the brief of rebooting the Blair Witch Project as a franchise, and I hate that word, franchise. Like, why does everything have to be a franchise? Why can't it just be a film that was good? Why do everything gets spun out and sort of dragged out to beyond its own capacity? I mean, we're even seeing that with some of the real beloved, like the Terminator. The last several Terminator films have all been a pile of festering shite, and there's so many great films and books and so on are just being ruined by having interminable garbage sequels. Anyway, sorry, this is a rant over. But I'm all in favour of making a sequel if you've got a good idea.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Do you think
you've gone nuts?
Is there and that's it! Smash the table over. I'll show you all. Get in the corner.
Oh, God.
Face that corner. Could this new Blair Witch Project movie have been done well? And if so, how?
Okay, well, I'm not documentary.
I ain't no documentary filmmaker.
But
can you do it in his voice, please, for the rest of the day?
So I think the idea is fine. They'd find, and I think with modern technology, like drone cameras, and this is the drone camera. Like they shoot it up, and it's like signal interference, and it can't see, which kind of suggests that there's some sort of eerie.
I quite like that.
Interference.
Actually, there was a bit where the drone cam went up and they flew it around, and they obviously know that they're only a day into the woods, so if they fly it a day in any direction, it should. And yet it was just woods.
Yeah,
for as
that's
far
what I
as,
mean.
That was a good idea.
I like that, and so I think the concept was fine. I think maybe they just needed to downplay it a little bit. It just needs to be a bit more subtle. I don't even mind seeing the Blair Witch, but yeah, just maybe have just little touches, like some, instead of like tents shooting up in the air, maybe you can just hear Josh or Mike or someone in the background from the original one.
Yeah.
Like take a sound clip from the original film and
Brilliant.
you can kind of hear that. It's like, what was that? Because they wouldn't know what it was because they weren't there. But yeah, just little things like that, just make it subtle and like a nod to the original films. Just I don't know. Maybe I can't come up with the whole
and
plot
even the time sort of fragmentation thing could have been good.
It's fine.
And I think if they just
don't give the guy a fucking fake beard.
Oh, it was bad, and he was
Really
such a
bad.
young, he even had like a young face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just looked stupid. Okay, so in summary, Liam, your pitch for the Blair Witch Project to go into the Hall of Pain. Forgive me. I can't be bothered. The Hall of Pain. Hall of Pain.
how am I supposed to pitch when you can't even be bothered to?
You were right. Your pitch for the Blair Witch Project to go into the Hall of Pain.
I wish you hadn't now.
Yeah, I was better before, wasn't it?
Okay, so the Blair Witch Project. Well, first of all, let's just break this up. Let's use stats. The first film.
It's
Ace.
science.
Yeah, this is science. The first film is Ace. The third film is meh.
Dog
It's not
shit.
terrible. I wouldn't say it was dog shit. It's
Cat shit.
It's meh.
Okay.
Meh.
Meh.
And the second
Like
film
a cat.
is oh yeah. So it's okay.
Okay, so we've got Ace and
Meh. So on balance, the Blair Witch
what's the scientifically the average of those three is what?
is
Okay.
No, I think the original Blair Witch. I think it's absolutely. I think it's terrifying. I think it's aged really well. The ambiguity of it all, the fan theories, it created a whole new subgenre almost. Yeah, all right, we'll ignore Cannibal Holocaust, but it kind of created a whole new subgenre. The viral marketing, everything about it. The fact that I went into the cinema not knowing if it was a real legend or, as I said, ambiguity of it. I just think it's such an important horror film. It's got to be in there. And the sequel, first off, Book of Shadows isn't as bad as everyone makes out. The new one, okay, is not great. But on balance, I just think the Blair Witch is
And I also
deserves a spot.
And I love the ending.
The ending is so
that
good.
moment where he's in the corner.
And we just talking about it earlier genuinely gave me goosebumps.
And me too.
So
for that reason,
how can you not put it in the Hall of Fame?
I cannot turn it down. We're going to continue our 100% record, and the Blair Witch Project, and reluctantly your sequels. Although the second one, we are pleased, thrilled, honoured, horrified, appalled to welcome you in to the Hall of Pain. That was the one. If we just use that every time now, we'll just save that sample and then we don't have to keep doing it.
Deserved.
Yeah, well deserved.
And hey, maybe we'll revisit it when the new video game comes out.
Absolutely, which I will get and play, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah,
I'm interested. I wonder what they'll do with that. I have no idea how you would... Well, I'm thinking some sort of Slender style, skulking around in the woods.
I'm thinking some sort of first-person walking sim. Which all horror games...
So what are we going if it was like a shoot-'em-up? That's so weird.
So there we go, Blair Witch.
Done. Well, and on that note, we should probably bugger off. We've done over an hour today. I was worried at the start of this we wouldn't have enough to talk about with just the 3 movies, 2 of which are a bit shit. But there you go. It turns out we waffled on for ages. I hope it was an entertaining hour in your lives. And if it was, then please tune in next time when we will be attempting something a little different. I nearly said what it was then, but then I thought, what if we put the episodes on in a different order? So I've got to keep it open-ended.
And why is it different?
It's not. I can't think of anything to say. I just covered it up. Don't forget by then.
Yeah.
It's Alien. We're going to do the Alien franchise. There
so
you
basically
go.
another franchise.
Shitloads of films, loads of video games.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Xenomorphs crawling out of every vent shaft in the place.
Yeah.
Face huggers hugging your face off, and acid blood. What more could you want from a podcast?
But will it get into the Hall of Pain?
Who knows? Well, that's my... Oh shit, that means now I've just given away what my pitch is. This concept still needs a bit of work, doesn't it? Can you... I know. I've got my Men in Black neuralizer.
Yes.
So you can forget everything I've just said. Hang on, I'm going to do it.
I'll go stand in the corner.
You stand in the corner while I neuralise you. And I can probably get a neuralizer soundtrack off it. Sound effect.
Do it.
Here we go. I'll try and do one though as well. He's forgotten. Oh no, he's forgotten everything. He looks catatonic. Liam, can you
wipe that damn shit off your face?
On which note, we will bid you farewell and see you next time for more Dark Natter. Thank you all for joining us for another chilling instalment of Dark Natter. If you enjoyed the show, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a positive review. Whereas if you hated it, please feel free to send us a torrent of vile abuse at darknatterpodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram @darknatterpodcast or on Twitter @dark_natter. We'd also love to hear your suggestions for future entries into the Hall of Pain. Please also check out our new YouTube channel, Dark Natter, where you'll find Liam and I embarrassing ourselves trying to sound hard while playing through terrifying video games like PT, the Silent Hills playable teaser. Finally, I'd like to thank Ross Budgen for the ace theme music you are currently hearing, and thank you all once again for listening. Until next time.